What were some of the positives and negatives of your experience?
Biggest positive is probably the ability to get around and talk to every single student every day and meet their individual learning needs instead of kind of, if you're standing up in front of 35 kids, you shoot to the middle and hope to get most. This really allowed me to individualize the education for each student, differentiate on the fly, and really just be there when they needed me. We kind of do school backwards. We do the easy stuff in class and send them home with the hard stuff. Well, we decided to do the easy stuff at home and let them do the hard stuff in class with the expert room.
And for the drawbacks?
You learn some spontaneous questions. So if you're in a classroom, giving a presentation, someone has a question, they raise their hand, and you can answer the question right then and there. So we had to teach our students to write those things down and bring them to class the next day instead of just jumping out spontaneously. It changes the dynamic of group work. It changes the dynamic of group learning where you don't have the kind of the whole class camaraderie because oftentimes students are working independently in small groups. So that was the sacrifice we were willing to make to do this, but it is one of the things that we're.
I plan on using the flipped classroom in my future math class. I want to do videos online at home and then be able to work more on problems face-to-face in the classroom.
Yeah, definitely, and that's a great place to start, but my hunch is that if you're like any other math teachers, they start with that, and then they realize they still have time, and they still have kids interested in doing more, and so they're able to incorporate more projects and more learning that reflects just the context that the kids are actually learning in, things that they can do for their community or real-world problems to solve, instead of just learning how to do the math stuff. Definitely, and the elementary teachers I talk to, they're more interested in they'll flip a lesson versus the whole class, So I had 100 chemistry videos for my chemistry class. I know elementary teachers that might have 5 for a year. Okay. So they're saying, this particular topic and this particular subject really lends itself to this form of instruction. I'm going to use it here versus taking a more systematic approach like I did.
What did you use to record your class? I know it probably changed over time.
We used a piece of software called Camtasia Studio.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
It's Camtasia. Okay. It's made by a company called Extra.
How did you change the dynamic of your classroom to fit the flip model?
I could take those 2 days of lecture, basically 2 hours of lecture, and I could distill that down into maybe 4 or 5 flip lectures that were anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes apiece. So I was really taking that 2 hours of lecture and distilling it down to what are kind of the essential things that I need to get, what are the big ideas, the essential questions, and distilling that down and then delivering that in a flipped model, because I knew that you can't take an hour lecture and flip that online, especially for 15 and 17-year-old students. You're going to lose them. They're the YouTube generation. Yeah. So you really only have 2 to 5 minutes to engage them. So that's sort of what I aimed for. Okay. I also knew that these are knowledge-bound students, so I did say, well, the expectation, I will have 2 to 5 minute videos, sometimes you might have to watch a 15-minute video. Or sometimes I would give them like a TED Talk, which can sometimes be anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour. Right. So very rarely did I actually use outside content. Like I never used Khan Academy. Okay. I'm not really a fan of the Khan Academy. I felt like I knew my students better and I knew the content better and I knew how they needed to learn it. Okay. And so in my videos I could give them examples of, hey, remember when we did this in this lab? Here's how this applies. So kind of going back to what I did with flipping my classroom, I really just kind of a couple of units because I knew I was running low on time in the classroom. Flip that content so that we could move a little bit quicker. Once I sort of caught up in my pacing guide, I realized, you know what, they got more depth as we went at a faster pace by doing it this way. So
how did your model change throughout the year?
By this time, you need to have this video watched by this time because we're going to do a lab. And then it allowed me to spend class time doing labs. So once I started flipping my classroom, every single day became a lab day. And that was transformative in my classroom. I mean, huge, huge, huge. So not only were we moving through content quicker, we were actually covering less content but at more depth. They had those videos that they could go back and they could review, but we were actually doing labs now first, then they were watching lectures, and then we were talking about what happened and why it happened.
How did you instruct your students to make sure they watched the videos?
As my time permitted, I would start flipping other units. I would start looking ahead 2-3 weeks and start actually preparing those lectures and, like I said, distilling them down to the big ideas, and then delivering that content and having that ready at least a week before I got to that material in class time, so that I had those posted online so that students could access them in advance. Because I think that at the public school and secondary level, access is a big issue with flipped classroom. I get really concerned that teachers flip their classroom and say, okay, the lecture has been posted, it'll be posted at 3 o'clock, and you need to have it watched by 8 a.m. tomorrow.
I've heard that the flipped classroom is both successful and not successful from students. Do you think it has anything to do with how the instructor presents the information?
I think it's absolutely how the instructor is presenting it. I think there's a lot of bad rap about the flipped classroom because I think it's very poorly implemented. Okay, if you're going to take the same lectures that you always deliver face-to-face and you're just going to throw those online, it's just sort of digital vomit. You're just throwing this out there. Direct instruction is very valid sometimes. I mean, lecture really does have a place in the classroom. It just shouldn't be the primary method. Technology enables it, but then what you do with it often has nothing to do with technology. I contacted all of the parents. I said, here's what I want to do, and here's why I want to do it. This is going to fundamentally be different than what your students are used to, but I have reasons for doing this, and I'd like to try it, and I'd like your feedback. And also asking parents, do you have a computer at home or a mobile device? Do you have internet access? If you have a cell phone, do you have unlimited data?
Where did the flipped classroom all get started? Where did you learn all this?
I got my master's degree in educational technology. That really was a transformative experience. It was a very new, out-of-the-box kind of program that wasn't about school. It was about learning. Yeah.
Do you have direct workshops to teach teachers about the flipped classroom model?
Teachers that are flipping, but I don't really think they notice that they're flipping.
So they're just doing it by instinct, kind of.
They're doing it by instinct, and it's tools and techniques that I've showed them. And I just used QuickTime, the screen capture tool in QuickTime, because I had a MacBook